recording. Cool, you're good to go.
All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to June's Gazebo Community meeting. It's very warm here in the North Hemisphere, at least in Europe. But we have a great guest today. So we'll see what Saurabh Kamat is gonna show us about the redesign of the, I guess, command line executables that the Gazebo suite has for accessing some of the functionality from the command line. And we'll learn about this new redesign, which is very good. And it's going to be part of the roadmap that we'll release in Jetty. We'll also go through the usual updates in Gazebo, and then there'll be plenty of time for questions if people are interested in learning more about Gazebo. So I'll start with the news and by sharing the screen. All right. I'm going to reuse this set of slides. And these slides capture the status, mostly the status of the roadmap for Jetty. So that's why you're going to see that in some, like this one, this slide is completed because I think I mentioned it on the last community meeting. Most of the migration from Qt5 to Qt6, which is part of the roadmap for Jetty, has been done. So we merged a few minor details. I don't remember if it was this month or at the end of May, but it's mostly good to go. Next one, which is also part of the roadmap, is the Zeno integration in GC Transport. You can see that we had part 1, part 2, and part 3. And then there are like 3 parts new. These are the ones that are marked for this month, and we merged them. So we have the ability to request asynchronous service calls and get the reply. The graph cache for services was also integrated. So we have the ability to know, this is like the discovery. We have the ability to know which services are available in the graph. And also part 6 has been recently merged. So not only the asynchronous version of the service request works, it also works the synchronous, the one-way, and the no input variant of those services. There are still a few things that are missing. So making sure, we need to make sure that intra-process communication works properly, and then another minor detail with services. But relatively happy with how the functionality is being integrated so far. There are no Zeno public headers exposed, so this is also good. So Zeno is like an internal dependency, it's like a private dependency. And there was also an interesting discussion with Jadu from the ROS2 team about what kind of conventions we could use in the Gazebo project that are aligned with the conventions. When I say conventions, I mean conventions in the Zeno implementation. There's something called token, liveliness token, that we both projects use. So if we follow the same conventions, we think that it's going to be possible to converge and reduce the need for a bridge in the future. Not right now, but so that's something that's ongoing. Another item for the roadmap is the command line. So we want to use binaries instead of all the Ruby infrastructure that we used to have. And then we'll learn more today from Saurabh about all these changes. You can track the status of this bigger task in this issue, in the GC Tools 7. Pretty much we're done with all the binary tools, except we went through this list today. Through the GC GUI, Saurabh, let me know if I'm wrong, but then another, I guess, subcommand from transport, GC params, and then I think GC fuel tools, if I remember correctly. So there were those 3 are the remaining ones, but we're in very good shape. Bazel has been also another item on the roadmap, and during the last month we've been integrating or migrating many of our dependencies and many of our libraries to Bezo. In particular, or a few examples are GC Common, Bullet, Dart, GC Physics, or GC Field Tools, GC Rendering. So our idea is going to be to port most of our dependencies before the Jassy release. Not Jassy, Jerry. Next, this is also an update from a work that mostly Steve Peters have been doing during the last months. So I believe I reported back last month that most of the work for eliminating the major version numbers from all the libraries has been completed. But there's another part that's ongoing right now, which is trying to create like an alias for the packages in a very similar way ROS does. That instead of containing numbers, it's gonna contain a name. So you can see here, for example, it's gonna look like GC Jetty CMake or GC Jetty Utils. So I think that's gonna be very familiar for the ROS community to use these names, and also very convenient because otherwise you need to remember exactly which major version was for this particular distribution, etc. So there are a few approaches where we can do this, and some prototypes are already there in place. And Steve is working his way to finish this before the release. Another set of updates, not necessarily on the roadmap, but interesting. One is on the infra side. So the project that we internally call the auto release Gazebo. This is the idea of eliminating as much friction as we can every time that we make a release. It's ongoing, and so we are trying to produce releases pseudo automatically every few weeks, for example. That's a period of time that we'll set, and then we're doing baby steps into that direction. In particular, we're focusing right now on including the changelog entry in every PR, and also including the bump of the version in every PR, but in a way that's relatively easy for the authors of that PR. So I won't go into the implementation details of this, but some prototypes are already in place, and then also some tooling has been migrated into Gazebo tooling. And we are starting essentially to test this in production in Gazebo Transport soon. ROS-Con is also, I'm not going to say approaching yet because we still have some months, but definitely deadlines are approaching. So we wanted to make sure that we submitted a few talks for Gazebo. So we had a session that's every year we used to do that, and then we discussed a few ideas and a few proposals were submitted. And also we spent some time with the OSRA Gazebo funding program. So this is the OSRA's plan for funding the sub-projects, and the way they do it is just we need to submit proposals and explaining why we need this extra money, etc. So we went through the process of creating ideas, discussing ideas, voting the best ideas, and then creating different working groups for creating the proposal. So we created 4, one for implementing or integrating a new physics engine, potentially Mujoko, and some of the infrastructure needed to make it happen. Something very similar with rendering, not with a particular rendering engine in mind, but mostly for making changes to make that happen when we find the right rendering engine. Another project for improving documentation, another project for, with a highlight in machine learning, and then another one for improving how Gazebo can be used in CI. Those are going to be now evaluated through the next month, and we'll get feedback, and I will report back. And I think that's all from me. We can go back to the agenda. Any questions before we jump into the talk for today? All right. Oh, Marcos.
Yeah, hello. I wanted to know if those proposals are public to know the scope of them, or if they maybe were created from tickets or issues that are linked somewhere. I'm interested in the Mushoko one.
Yeah. Those are not public. And Steve or Kat, please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe those are not public by OSRA policy. The only thing that we publish, because we every time that we have one of our Gazebo PMC meetings, we normally publish the minutes, some of the high level details on community, right? So you probably can see at a very high level what we're doing, which is essentially what I described. But the details of the proposal, the content, is not. Is that right, Steve? Or I'm forgetting something?
I mean, anyone can attend our PMC meetings, and I think we posted a link to a draft of our proposal in the PMC meeting notes. So if you look there, you may be able to find it.
Yeah.
The content of the proposal is not a secret, in my opinion. I think the deliberations of the TGC about which ones to prioritize, I think that will be confidential. So
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
then
but
look for the minutes of the PMC one. Of that
so
meeting.
On the Open Robotics calendar, there's a link to the Gazebo PMC meeting event on Mondays, and that has a link to the public agenda document. And so look there and you might find it. There's also a GZ Physics issue about integration with Majoko, and I'll post that there, so you can comment there about your interest if you would like.
Okay, yeah, thanks. Yeah, here in Ecoman we have some people that have been working on Mujago, so yeah, maybe someone was also interested in looking into that. So yeah, just wanted to forward information.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Steve said, there's absolutely no secret or nothing particularly dark in these projects. They are very, as you could imagine, like integrating Munjoko, integrating any rendering engine, or improving the documentation, the tutorials, or improving how CI works with Gazebo is literally, articulate a proposal around that. So,
thank you.
Finger crossed that we'll get projects funded, or one at least. More questions? Thanks, Marcos. All right, then it's my pleasure to introduce Saurabh Kamat from the ROS-Industrial Consortium right now in Asia Pacific in Singapore, if I'm not wrong. And Saurabh has been a long-term collaborator, I'd say, right now, working on Gazebo for a while, and he was kind enough to work on this task, and he's gonna present some of his thoughts and some of his design decisions about how he created this refactor. So, Saurabh, all yours.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, let me try sharing my screen.
Looks good.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about the recent updates to the Gazebo command line interface, as Carlos said. So I want to share a major change that we have been working on in the Gazebo ecosystem. That is the modernization of our CLI. Historically, Gazebo CLI has relied on a Ruby-based system. So this is now changing, and we are moving to a fully native C++ architecture. So this brings a simpler, more maintainable CLI and better cross-platform support. So we have migrated the core CLI logic from Ruby into these native C++ executables. The Ruby script now serves as a thin dispatcher that acts as an entry point to individual C++ executables. So let's look at what the CLI looked like before. The gz command comes from the gz tools package, which would search for all the existing Ruby scripts for each subcommand like sim, topic, service, SDF, and many more, and then consolidate them. So these scripts passed arguments and then used extern C bindings to call into C++ functions that were part of a shared library. So we had a mixed language stack where Ruby handled the interface, C++ handled the logic. It worked, but it came with a lot of drawbacks. So working with the Ruby-based approach, first debugging was a major pain point because the CLI went through Ruby. Tools like GDB couldn't easily access the actual simulation logic. Second, Ruby's fork model doesn't work well on Windows. So the gzsim command simply couldn't run there out of the box. Third, developers had to maintain logic split between Ruby and C++. This added complexity and fragility. And finally, Qt dependencies were pulled at the CLI level for gzsim library, even when GUI wasn't used. So this made headless Docker builds impossible on Docker Hub. So because Docker Hub restricts GUI-based packages. So the result is poor introspection, tricky to debug, painful to change, not cross-platform, and incapable of containerization. So we went for a more C++ approach where we redesigned it, and each CLI subcommand, sim, topic, service, SDF is now a standalone C++ binary. So these handle their own arguments and have their own logic. No more extern calls. Instead, the entire logic now lives inside the executable. It works across platforms because platform-specific issues like process forking on Windows no longer is a problem. The gz tools gz command is now thin launcher, which can be ignored entirely in the absence of gz tools. So as you can see on the left, you have this gzsim -help. This is with gz tools. If you want to use the direct executable, that is also possible. So if you install the apt binaries in Ubuntu, your executable will be at the user libexec gzsim followed by the version, and gzsim main is the executable for sim. Similarly, each library has its own executable. So the new gz CLI is, so the gz command is now just a Ruby wrapper. It still exists, but all it does now is dispatch commands to the appropriate C++ executable. So it is only used during runtime. The logic is nested inside the individual executable and can be run without the gz command. So as you can see here, all the left side is almost the same, except there is just a C++ binary in between that contains actual logic. So since there is no more Ruby logic, this makes the CLI architecture simpler and it's much more cross-platform. So how did this impact the existing libraries? So it allowed us to make some architectural improvements. Most importantly, we have decoupled the GUI components from gzsim library. So previously, gzsim had Qt baked in it at executable level. This was the main blocker for creating official Docker images, as Docker Hub's automated build environment does not support graphical dependencies like Qt. Now we can build headless versions of gzsim that exclude the GUI entirely, which makes them Docker Hub compatible. So now we have the ability to release official Docker images, which may start in the future Gazebo releases. So this migration effort is being tracked under this issue that I have listed, gz tools issues, the 7th issue there. And the remaining commands will be migrated by the Jetty release. So this is what it looks like in practice. So you can now run gzsim through gztools on the left, and on the right it is the same, but there is just an extra. You can see that the executable now, so CLI now points to the executable. So the behavior is same for the users, but the internals are more robust. They are more portable. So yeah, I think this was a short uh, presentation by me, and yeah, I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Saurabh. Yeah, this is going to be very useful, I believe. And yeah, thanks for all the work, because it's, I mean, there are many repositories, many subcommands, so it's been great. Questions for Saurabh? I guess I have a few questions. The first one, maybe this is not going to be very relevant now that we are eliminating the major versions from all the libraries, etc. But in the previous approach with Ruby, there was a way to specify which version of the library you wanted to use. You do GC same, and you could specify a particular version because multiple versions could be installed side by side. Are we losing that functionality, I guess, from this with this new refactor?
I don't think so. Yeah. Go ahead, Steve. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, we haven't removed that aspect of version numbers from Jetty. So I think there's a YAML file and a Ruby file that get installed with each command. Those still have version numbers. The thing that will change with Gazebo K is that Gazebo K won't be side-by-side installable with Jetty or anything earlier. Well, I think it would be installable with like Ionic, because Ionic still has numbers, but it wouldn't be side-by-side installable with Jetty. So it wouldn't be possible to just have them on the same system. Well, if you had like multiple Colcon workspaces and sourced them all, but like that probably wouldn't work. That would have other problems. So I think in the long term, it won't be possible to choose which version of a command you want, because eventually the old versions will be unsupported, and you'll just be able to have one installed at a time. Now, and I don't think it's a really recommended thing to try to use two different source two different Colcon workspaces at the same time with two different versions of Gazebo. I wouldn't recommend that. So
yeah, that sounds good. I think it won't be a problem because we won't be able to do it. And the other question I have is that if I understood correctly, like there's gonna be still some Ruby logic at the beginning to parse maybe like the high level arguments, and then directly, correct me if I'm wrong, you take those arguments and pretty much pass them through the standalone executables that are gonna do pretty much everything, right? Is that correct?
Yes. So right now, just two arguments are passed, if I remember it right: force versions and versions. So those two are parsed by the Ruby, the GZ tools itself, but the rest of the arguments are not touched, because the entire Ruby logic that was that was parsing those arguments no longer exists. Right. So those arguments are directly forwarded, and since we're using CLI 11, the C++ library, it just takes those arguments and it runs callbacks on those.
So I was wondering if at some point it makes sense to maybe remove that logic from Ruby, just to remove any dependency on Ruby, and assuming that we can use CLI 11 for parse. If we need to do that high level or first level of parsing, I guess to figure out which is the binary that we want to call or something, does it make sense to use CLI 11 eventually and remove Ruby?
So I think it would be a good idea to move away from Ruby. But I'm not. I haven't. I don't think this has been discussed in the PMC before, right? So I am trying to test a few things in the GZ Sim side of things, because in GZ Sim I'm trying to launch two execute. I'm trying to maintain the server and the GUI as separate executables, and there is a main executable that is fed to Ruby. So that is the eventual goal. Right now we have not reached there, because the thing that happens is handler does not work properly. So when you get a control C, the server logic, it catches it first. Sorry, the GUI catches it before the server logic. So the server still keeps running. So you have to press control C twice if you want to exit. Right. So that is still, that signal handling is something that I've still not figured out. But I've been trying to orchestrate multiple executables from inside a single executable, and maybe that could help us eventually move away from Ruby. But I'm not sure if it is a short. It can happen anytime soon. I think Steve, do you want to add something?
I was just going to comment that if we wanted to move away from Ruby, I would consider Python, because I believe that's what's used for the ROS-2 CLI tools. I don't think it would make sense to try to write the wrapper script in C++. I think like a lighter weight scripting language makes sense. I've even heard some rumblings about using some of the Colcon functionality for it. But yeah, I think yeah, I would say Python if we didn't want to use Ruby anymore.
Okay. Yeah, definitely not something in the short term, but I was just wondering if you had thoughts about that, or if you thought already about that. More questions for Saurabh? I know Jose is not here, but Jose Rivera has also been helping in the project. So also thanks, Jose, for reviewing probably most, and Steve for reviewing most of the Saurabh work, I believe.
Wait, I think there's a question in the chat. I just saw. I think it's like, will these changes be in Jetty, or will they be added to Harmonic? So if you're asking about the standalone executables, these will be part of Jetty. I don't think there is any plan to backport them to Harmonic. Although some executables are available in Ionic, I think the SDF executable, GZ SDF is available. GZ Transport is available. I think GZ Transport might be available in Harmonic, is available in Ionic. SDF is available in Ionic. GZ Sim will only be available in Jetty. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, Carlos.
Yeah, exactly. This is going to be part of Jetty for sure, because it's in the roadmap. And then some of the, as you said, some of them are backportable, but not all. More questions? Or any other Gazebo related questions are more than welcome as well. Otherwise, we can leave it here. But Just wanted to give you one more chance before we go. All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you in July with another one. We'll talk about probably ray tracing in Gazebo. Thanks, everybody. Ciao, ciao.
Goodbye.
Bye.